Most wars begin with a clear signal. Armies cross borders, aircraft fill the sky, and governments issue formal declarations. The world knows conflict has started. The Cold War followed no such script. There was no official battlefield stretching across continents. Instead, two superpowers watched each other constantly, preparing for a war they hoped would never happen. For decades, billions of people lived beneath a shadow unlike anything humanity had ever experienced, created by the possibility that civilization itself could disappear in a matter of hours. This was a struggle built on fear and fought in secret. It transformed politics, technology, and culture into a high-stakes geopolitical thriller lasting nearly half a century. When World War II ended in 1945, much of the world celebrated. Hitler and Nazi Germany had been defeated, and people hoped a lasting peace would follow the deadliest conflict in human history. But beneath the celebrations, another struggle was already beginning. The alliance that defeated Hitler was built on the necessity of survival, not on genuine trust. Once the common enemy disappeared, the partnership began unraveling. Cooperation slowly transformed into suspicion, and the victors' differences became impossible to ignore. The United States and the Soviet Union represented two strictly different visions for the future. They held opposing beliefs about political systems, economic power, and the definition of freedom. Because both nations possessed extraordinary military and economic resources, a direct clash carried the risk of total annihilation. The world had escaped one catastrophe, only to enter another, an era where global dominance had to be secured through covert means. Many of the coming battles unfolded far from public view. Governments created powerful intelligence agencies to fight a war that most citizens would never witness. Spies infiltrated foreign institutions, while double agents operated in silence to manipulate global affairs. Information became the most valuable resource on Earth. A single classified document could alter the calculations of entire nations. As these heavy black reduction lines show, secrecy was the industry standard, and trust became impossible to find. Neutrality became nearly impossible. Every regional conflict and political movement was pulled into specific zones of control, dividing the planet into two competing camps. The public was largely blind to this hidden industry. For decades, the fate of the world was routinely dictated by shadow networks and stolen files. This was not fought only with secrets, it was fought with ideas. Governments weaponized propaganda to convince the world that their vision represented humanity's future. Every achievement carried symbolic weight. Scientific breakthroughs and athletic victories and space exploration were used as evidence of one system's superiority over the other. The underlying tension finally reached its absolute breaking point in the year 1962. American leaders discovered Soviet nuclear missiles secretly stationed in Cuba. This aerial surveillance proved the existence of missile erectors just miles from the American coast. For 13 days, humanity stood at the absolute brink of nuclear war. Avoiding disaster relied on fragile diplomatic backchannels and the desperate hope that no one would make a fatal miscalculation. Compromise eventually emerged, and the immediate danger passed. Civilization survived, not because the situation was safe, but because disaster had been narrowly avoided. Over the following decades, the immense cost of this global competition began to show. Sustaining a worldwide military and intelligence presence created economic and political fractures that became increasingly difficult for the Soviet Union to manage. Internal pressures and attempts at reform eventually led to an unexpected collapse. The Soviet Union dissolved, and the bipolar world that had defined half a century disappeared. The Cold War became history, but it left a lasting mark on the global institutions and military alliances that remain in place today. The intelligence apparatus built during this era did not vanish. It evolved, continuing to shape how modern nations interact and how information is used as a weapon. Human civilization survived its most dangerous moments. It is a reminder that while ideologies can divide the world, the future often depends on the decisions made by a handful of people when everything is on the line.